Most nights you'll find retired Army Staff Sergeant Felicia Powell here, organizing events at Glenarden's American Legion. She's a servant at heart who dreamed of serving her country.
From third grade, I made up my mind I want to go into the military, the Army to be exact.
That love of country is stronger than ever, even as she now battles vision problems that started back when she worked as a medical supply specialist in the Army.
I had the full detached retina in the left eye, and then I had the beginning of detached retina in my right eye.
She had surgery while serving and says the doctor told her her eyes would get progressively worse, possibly eventually losing her vision.
My eyes would never get any better, and I've been having problems over the years with different things.
Records show when Powell filed a disability claim with the Department of Veterans Affairs, she was given the lowest rating. She earns $165 a month.
It's hard to figure that they will only just give me 10% if my eyes are a vital organ to my body.
She said other claims she's filed have been denied, with the agency determining they were not connected to her service.
I've been suffering from PTSD ever since I came back from Vietnam.
A battle Marine Corps vet Conley Monk from Connecticut has waged ever since returning from war. He spent decades applying for medical disability compensation claims that were finally granted in a landmark case starting in 2015.
I came home in 1970. It took me 40 years altogether.
The VA knows that there are real concrete barriers to just basic access.
Richard Brookshire is co-founder of the nonprofit Black Veterans Project out of Baltimore. He and Yale Veterans Legal Services Clinic helped Monk sue the VA recently, claiming years of discrimination.
This is something that should have happened a long time ago.
His legal team gained access to VA records and found black vets were getting disability claims denied at a higher rate than white vets.
Over the course of the last 20 years, there were statistically significant disparities in the allocation of disability benefits. One as striking as a 29% greater likelihood of denial for PTSD claims.
The VA doesn't respond to pending litigation, but admits throughout history there have been unacceptable disparities due to racism. A study is currently underway looking at racial disparities and benefits claims decisions between 2010 and 2020 that could be done by the summer.
You're talking about tens of billions of dollars that have been siphoned out of the black community.
And that excess goes beyond medical claims, including black veterans from World War II denied housing and education benefits under the GI Bill, says historian Richard Rothstein.
So in practice, African Americans had very, very little opportunity to use the GI benefits that the GI Bill provided throughout the South. In the North, it was somewhat better, although in the North even, there were many colleges and universities that would not admit African Americans.
He didn't really get the credit that he deserved from his service.
In Louisiana, Vanessa Brooks says her father, Lawrence, a World War II Army vet, always wanted to get an education.
I listened to his stories of heartbreak because he wanted to go to school.
He was given an honorary degree after his death. The VA says he never applied for education benefits. His daughter wonders if he even knew he was eligible. When she became his caretaker, she realized how little he had been receiving in other VA benefits.
When I learned that he was getting $91 a month pension, I knew something had to be not right.
VA records requested by NBC News show it wasn't until she reapplied for him in 2014 at 105 years old that his pension started increasing retroactively. Just months before his death, he received more than $2,000 a month.
The consequences of that wealth gap are enormous.
Efforts to address these wrongs have met challenges.
This is no giveaway. This is to restore the rights of those people who never got them.
South Carolina Congressman James Clyburn and Massachusetts Congressman Seth Moulton, himself a Marine veteran, introduced the GI Bill Restoration Act in hopes of compensating the survivors of black vets who were denied benefits.
We know that the children of parents who go to college are much more likely to go to college themselves and much more likely to have successful careers. So we want to understand what impact this had, not just on World War II veterans themselves, but on the generations that followed.
The bill died in the last Congress. They plan to introduce it in the House again this year.
Because we are Americans, and we are benefiting from the sacrifices of some Americans who were not treated fairly.
This historical scar belongs to all of us.
A moment in history that vets like Felicia Powell say is long overdue.
It's 2023, and I mean, the changes should have been done a long time ago.
Congressman Clyburn also plans to introduce a companion bill not as costly as the GI Restoration Act. The VA Housing Forever Act would allow descendants of veterans to use loans if they were never used before. The new Republican chair of the House Veterans Affairs Committee says he'll consider any legislation to right any wrongs. Now the Secretary of the VA is announcing the creation of an equity team to further analyze those disparities. The VA acknowledged the role the media is playing, including our joint NBC News investigation and holding its agency accountable.
I commend the role that you're doing in giving voice to veterans and holding us to account. So thank you for that.
Earlier this week, the I-Team, along with other NBC stations around the country, told the stories of black vets who say they've been denied, undercompensated, or delayed in getting some of the same benefits given to their white counterparts, including disability compensation. And for World War II veterans, access to education and housing loans promised under the GI Bill.
We've been trying to figure out these historic disparate outcomes for some time. And so it's evident to me that, consistent with the President's EO, we need a concerted effort through this team to not only get to the bottom of the why, but then to get to enacting policies and procedures to fix it.
Secretary Dennis McDonough with the Department of Veterans Affairs just announced a new equity team that would analyze disparities in how black veterans are granted benefits compared to white vets. He said the team would organize in the coming days, but couldn't offer a timeline for when its work would be done.
There's more we can do, and there's more we will do.
When asked if the VA could promise black vets that they will no longer face discrimination, the secretary was non-committal.
I'm saying that we are fighting every single day to get every vet everything that they have earned. And I'm going to let veterans determine whether we've succeeded at that.
Just last month, the president issued an executive order for all government agencies to create equity teams. The VA is also reviewing a decade's worth of disability claims to identify any disparities. That's expected this summer. Now, newly released VA documents reveal what the agency knew about some disparities.
This is something that should have happened a long time ago.
Vietnam veteran Connie Monk from Connecticut is just one of many who's had to fight for the benefits he's owed, spending years applying for medical disability compensation claims that were finally granted starting in 2015.
I've been suffering from PTSD ever since I came back from Vietnam.
With help from the Yale Veterans Legal Services Clinic and the Black Veterans Project out of Baltimore, Monk recently sued the VA, claiming years of discrimination.
It's about forcing a level of transparency by VA.
Richard Brookshire told the I-Team they filed a Freedom of Information Act request after a former VA staffer in the Benefits Administration came forward to them. The staffer, who confirmed the accounts with NBC News, said he attended a meeting with other VA senior leaders in 2017 where data was provided showing disparities between white and black veterans going all the way back to the founding of the VA. He said attendees were told not to discuss the meeting in emails. What are your thoughts about hearing higher-ranking staff of the VA saying things like, don't email this because we don't want people to be able to find this information by FOIA?
It's not surprising. I think that, unfortunately, our country still has an issue grappling with the ways in which institutions can operate and perpetuate systemic discrimination.
Now close to 1,000 newly released VA documents obtained from that FOIA are providing some insight on what the agency knew about disparities. What happens after obtaining these documents?
We have to understand the human impact of internal VA decisions,
including this VA report from 2017. In the PTSD grant rate analysis, it showed black veterans had the highest rate of denials with disability claims, only 43% approved, compared to a national average of 55%. White vets had an even higher approval rate at 57%.
They found within this PTSD report that there were significant racial disparities relative to PTSD alone, and they failed in their responsibility to do their due diligence and to ensure that they had a full accounting in a way that was transparent.
The report said the Veterans Benefits Administration will investigate the possible reasons for those variables. We asked the VA if any action was taken to address the disparities after that report. A spokesperson couldn't immediately answer that question, but told NBC News the VA is gathering the data and will share it once fully compiled. As for the other documents released in the FOIA, the VA said it couldn't comment due to pending litigation. Kayla Williams is a former top official at the VA, now speaking out about what she describes as a history of unwillingness by the VA to acknowledge disparities.
There are some folks in VA who don't want to look for or look at these problems. They're worried that if disparities are found, that will harm the trust that veterans have in VA. My personal opinion is that is a little backwards. Veterans are already aware. They're very, very aware of what's happening.
We've been trying to figure out these historic disparate outcomes for some time.
Earlier this month, VA Secretary Dennis McDonough acknowledged racial disparities in the past and announced a new equity team to investigate how race played a role in the dissemination of benefits.
I think that this administration is also walking into a history that they have to contend with, and that's no easy task. And I think that this administration has been doing a remarkable job of trying to look across the VA in general. But I think where they could improve is full transparency, is in releasing what they know.
The VA admits there have been racial disparities throughout history when it comes to benefits and says its top priority is to fix that. Now, a new 10-year study offers a glimpse of how big that gap has been. The new study by the Government Accountability Office was mandated by Congress and looks at disability claims data by race and ethnicity over a 10-year span ending in fiscal year 2020, the most recent full year of data. The GAO found in that time frame, black vets received the lowest approval rating with 61% overall. That compares to white vets with 75%. The report showed those differences were also prominent when broken down by sex, with black men and black women having a lower approval rating.
Thank God we finally have validation, because this has been such a long-standing issue.
Barbara Ward is an Air Force veteran and worked as the director of the Center for Minority Veterans. She's seen studies before, but hopes this time there will be action.
There needs to be a plan. When you do an action plan, then it says, this is the mission, this is what we hope to accomplish, these are our objectives, these are our timelines, these are the people that are going to be held accountable. You have to have goals that are measurable.
Earlier this year, the News 4i team, along with NBC News and other NBC stations around the country, told the stories of black vets who fought for years for some of the same benefits given to their white counterparts with similar conditions. The GAO also focused on certain medical conditions, including hearing loss, which had the largest disparity between black and white male veterans, and post-traumatic stress, which found a 13% difference. The study acknowledged steps taken by the VA to better track the issue, but said it also lacks a comprehensive plan for gathering race data or insight into the root cause of the disparities. That's something the VA's newly announced equity team hopes to address. But the GA report is saying that it wants a plan and a timeline. Yeah. Are you able to promise them and black vets that you'll have one?
We believe several of the steps we have begun to take are responsive to what the GAO is looking for. As I said a minute ago, we take it very seriously and support and concur with the recommendations that GAO has put on. As for timing, I want veterans to see and to understand and ultimately to feel and experience that we're approaching this with urgency.
I don't think the issue is about them being able to. I think the VA has always had the ability to rectify this issue. It's whether or not they are sincere in making the commitment to do it now.
The VA has 180 days to respond with steps they'll take to address the recommendations. Now in the report, the GAO also interviewed veteran service organizations about what might have contributed to the disparities. Answers included lack of awareness among some vets with getting help, filing claims, or missing or incomplete records, potential for bias, and the impact of military discharge status. We'll stay on top of this story to see what happens next.